This is Porch Lore. And I'm your host, Devin. This is the tale of the White Witch of Rose Hall. This story is about my trip to Jamaica, about the beauty of the island, the warmth of its people, and something else, something darker. This is my encounter with the White Witch of Rose Hall. It was last summer. I'd been feeling untethered, I guess. Life had been a whirlwind of stress and disappointment after disappointment. And if I'm being honest, I just needed to escape, to breathe, to find myself again. So I booked a trip to Jamaica, and not one of those all-inclusive resorts where you're surrounded by tourists sipping pina coladas by the pool. No, I wanted something immersive and authentic, something real. I found a little guest house in Montego Bay, run by a local family. It was nestled on the edge of the jungle, surrounded by towering palms, banana trees, and flowering hibiscus. The air was thick with the scent of salt from the ocean, and the sweet, heady perfume of tropical blooms filled the breeze. It felt like stepping into a dream world. The family who ran the guest house was incredible. Miss Clara, the matriarch, was this tiny, feisty woman with a voice like warm molasses and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. She had this way of making you feel like family the moment you walked through the door. Her cooking was out of this world. Jerk chicken so tender it fell off the bone, and saltfish that tasted like home, and fresh mangoes so sweet they made your teeth ache. Every evening we'd sit on the porch, sipping sorrel drink or coconut water straight from the shell, and she'd tell us stories. Stories about the island's history, about the spirits that lived in the trees, and about the legends that had been passed down for generations. That's how I first heard about Annie Palmer, the White Witch of Rose Hall. Miss Clara told us about how Annie was this beautiful and cruel woman who lived in the 1800s at Rose Hall, a grand plantation house up in the hills. They said her spirit still haunted the house, that she'd appear to visitors, her pale skin glowing in the moonlight, her eyes burning with hatred. I laughed it off at first. I figured it was just a spooky tale to scare tourists. But Miss Clara gave me this look, like she knew something I didn't, and she told me that some stories are more than just stories. But I didn't think much of it at the time. I was too busy falling in love with Jamaica. The island is, God, it's breathtaking. The jungle is so alive, so dense and green, with vines hanging from the trees like curtains, and birds calling to each other in the canopy. I'd walk for hours, picking mangoes, guavas, and star apples straight from the trees, their juice sticky and sweet on my fingers. The locals would wave as I passed, calling out greetings in that musical Jamaican patois. It felt like paradise. But then, one day, I decided to visit Rose Hall. I had heard about the tours they offered, where you could just walk through the old plantation house and hear the history of the place. I love history, so I figured it would be interesting, a little taste of the island's past. But I didn't expect it to be what it was. The plantation only had one tour left for the day, so I signed up for that one, and I hopped onto a bus with several other people. There were probably about 12 of us total. The drive up to Rose Hall was stunning. The road wound through the hills, past fields of sugarcane and clusters of brightly painted houses. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers and the earthy smell of the jungle. When we finally reached the house, I was struck by how imposing it was. It was this grand white structure perched on a hill overlooking the ocean, with tall columns and wide verandas. It's beautiful. but there was something eerie about it, something that made my skin crawl. The tour guide was this cheerful woman with a bright smile and a voice that carried through the halls. She told us all about the history of the house, about Annie Palmer and her reign of terror. She showed us the rooms where Annie had supposedly practiced her dark magic, the dungeons where she tortured her slaves, and the spot where she was buried. It was fascinating, but also very unsettling. I kept feeling like someone was watching me, but we were the only tour group. There was no one else on the property. After the tour ended, we were told we had a quick break, so everyone from the group dispersed to hit the restrooms, eat some snacks, and walk around the property. Everyone else in the group seemed to at least be in pairs. I seemed to be the only solo one. So I decided to explore the grounds on my own. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the lawn, and the air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers. I could stay here forever. I wandered down a path that led into the jungle, the trees closing in around me. It was quiet, except for the sound of my footsteps and the occasional rustle of leaves. Through the lush undergrowth, I see something that looks almost like ruins of an old building, stones or something. For those of you who don't know, I minored in archaeology in college, in anthropology, and I am a little obsessed with anything that has to do with archaeology, finding artifacts, remnants of the past, anything like that. So I love exploring for lost artifacts, remnants of the past, anything left behind by past owners. So I immediately kneel down and start to move the foliage out of the way so I can see what's underneath. Then it hits me, and I realize what I've just found. 2 rows of evenly spaced out fieldstones. Fieldstones were oftentimes used to mark slave burials on plantations. I think I just found the cemetery of the enslaved people who lived here. Oh my God. I have to tell somebody. By the looks of it and all the overgrowth, nobody knew it was there. It was starting to get dark now, so I turned around and ran back up the trail toward the plantation to alert the tour guide of what I had found. But to my horror, the tour bus was gone. Everyone was gone. The group had left me at Rose Hall Plantation alone. And now the sun was almost completely set, and it was dark. This is the jungle. I'm not walking miles back to the guest house in the pitch black jungle. This isn't Ohio. There are major predators out here. So I managed to get the back door to the kitchen of the plantation house open and was able to take shelter inside for the night. The house was gorgeous and so grand. Not gonna lie, it kind of felt cool to be able to spend the evening there and pretend like it was my house. It was a little spooky, but surprisingly cozy, and I felt safe and protected from the creepy wild sounds of the jungle at night. I finished the last granola bar I had in my backpack and laid down on one of the fainting couches to go to sleep until morning. Then I'd walk back. Just as I started to doze off, I smelled a strong, sweet floral smell and felt a cold breeze brush across my face. I opened my eyes, and that's when I saw her. She was wearing a white dress, the fabric flowing around her like smoke, and her skin, it was so pale it looked like she was glowing. Her hair was dark, cascading down her back, and her eyes, they were black, like voids, and they were fixed on me. I sat straight up and froze. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. She didn't move. She just stood there, watching me with those empty eyes. And then she smiled. But it wasn't a friendly smile. It was cruel, twisted, like she knew something I didn't. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, staring at her as she took a step forward. And then she spoke. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried through the air like a knife. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "This is my home." I don't know how I did it, but I managed to leap off that fainting couch and run. I didn't look back. I just ran as fast as I could out the back door and down the long winding driveway, my feet slipping on the wet leaves, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't stop running until I was all the way back to the guest house, collapsing on the porch, my heart still racing. Miss Clara found me laying there, shaking and pale. She didn't ask what happened, just handed me a cup of tea, sat beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "You saw it, didn't you?" she said quietly. I nodded, too shaken to speak. She sighed, her eyes sad. "Some spirits," she said, "don't rest easy." That night, I told Miss Clara about the graves of the enslaved that I thought I had discovered at Rose Hall. She jumped up, got on the phone, and the next morning, we met with the head of the Historical Society and a few government officials as I led them to the spot. I left Jamaica the next day. I couldn't stay, not after what I'd seen. 2 months later, I received a phone call. It was Miss Clara. She told me they sent archaeologists out there who had confirmed that it was in fact the missing graveyard of the enslaved people who lived at Rose Hall. I like to think their spirits are already at peace. But as for Annie Palmer, the White Witch of Rose Hall, we know her spirit is not at rest, and probably never will be. Thanks for joining me, Porch Pals. If any of you have your own spooky or unexplained experiences, I'd love to hear it. Shoot me an email and maybe I'll tell your story next.